Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday night. We are live on the Dr. Boz channel, and I am so happy to see so many of you there on the chat, helping me launch off on a Tuesday. And I will tell you, it has not been the easiest fast for me. Most of you know that I fast on Sundays through this show, and I'm definitely ready to eat. I'm going to start out with some traditions. We have a great show tonight that we're going to talk about a deeper dive into a discussion we did a few weeks ago that I left just superficial, but have had some time to look further into it. And that is the use of Ozempic and whether or not I would prescribe it in a patient today. I think you'll be interested to hear the topic and how going into this a little bit more in depth on some of the do's and don'ts. So just making sure everybody can see me there. Hello, everybody. Again, really appreciate all of you joining in right at the start of this. I'm going to start with a couple of traditions, and while I do one of my traditions, I'm going to switch screens because I have an interesting thing to tell you about before I go into here. So, all right, so I've been using the Keto Mojo dashboard to run my support groups so that I can see how well the folks are that are supporting grouping with me are doing. This is my dashboard, and you can see that was my glucose a few minutes ago. This was my ketones a few minutes ago. This was my Dr. Boz ratio a few minutes ago. And I'm going to scroll down to the chart down here while I do my numbers, just to give you an idea of how this looks on the Keto Mojo dashboard, and encourage you that if you have a support group, this app is something that you should have all of your folks dialing in and checking their numbers together. I'm going to show you how this works. It's pretty slick. I am checking my ketones right here in front of you. I just pricked my finger. And as you can see by the last glucose, I'm definitely hungry. But I'll hold this up to the front to this area as I show you my glucose, about the same it was a few minutes ago. Ketones about the same as they were a few minutes ago. And it's beeping at me, as I synchronize that with my my app here, I'm just going to show you how quickly that updates. Because I really love this tool, and if you are in a support group, there is no reason you should not be synchronizing your data with everybody in your group. And it is one of the features that we helped Keto Mojo say, you want to have effective support groups, use data. And that dashboard really is a great way to follow the numbers, get a hold of what motivates you. I'll tell you, since I've been doing my part to synchronize with several dashboards, I'm doing even better, even with the 21-day masterclass all tucked away and not currently active. Meaning we do that class twice a year. I'm really good during the class. But I have lots of you watching me during the class. So as you might expect, when the class is over, I can let loose a little, and my numbers aren't quite as good. So now take a look at this. So I have just finished up checking my numbers and synchronizing it. And then if you do that little swirly thing, now the glucose is 54. It was 55. Ketones 2.8. They were 3. But the Dr. Boz ratio is about the same. Again, that's the math. But more importantly, as I go down here, what I want to show you, and this is going to play into our talk later on tonight, is that I don't need to take ketones in bubble water tonight. I am going to do that as a way to show you that, yes, when you take supplements, they should change the numbers. And these are the numbers I'm talking about. Not just that your ketone strip is a little bit more pink, but you should definitely be seeing the numbers rise. I'm super excited to say that I could be drinking the raspberry lemonade as of today, but because it just got back into the warehouse, we have been out for 4 weeks, which is why I'm only drinking Pucker Up, because I didn't have any raspberry lemonade for me either. But if you look, there's tonight, right after the show started, 6:04, but a half an hour before the show started, there was my glucose, my ketones. And then if you go back over earlier this morning, I woke up this morning with a glucose of around 70, ketones of 2.5. It's a little better marker of Well, actually, that was when I woke up in the middle of the night. And I usually would not check it in the middle of the night, but I had pretty good energy. And I was like, wow, I bet you my ketones are high. So 2.5 in the middle of the night is not what I like to see. We're going to just pull up a few more of those readings so you can see them. So there's this other little drop down here. I'm going to add 50 of them because I want to show you a little bit of a trend. And again, this gives you some insight as to what we're going to circle back to a little later on. So there's what it really was when I got up this morning, which is a glucose of 65, ketones of 1.4. As you might guess, my sleep score wasn't great because of that wake up in the middle of the night. 4:30 again is pretty early. I don't know why I was up at 4:30 in the morning. There's one that's not so good, 6 p.m. at night. Again, glucose of 80, ketones of 0.5. That was on Monday night after I'd been fasting 24 hours. So you can see that my trends are better than they are when I start out at my so this was Monday morning. If you go back to Thursday, though, that ketone's 0.2 and the glucose was 93, and that was after I ate. So again, I'm just trying to show you some real data from me and know that I do that because it keeps me accountable, but it also gives me a chance to say there are some pretty awesome tools that we have out there to connect. And I don't mean just connecting on a virtual level, but that is like through Zoom, but really saying watch and share those numbers with your support group. Call into to Mojo, let them know we sent you if you're looking to say, how do I use that? How do I do that? And then if you're buying strips, we do have, if you put in DRBOZ as a promo code, you get a little discount. We are just so thankful for using their platform to connect our support groups and really say, accountability through data is pretty important. I'm going to do 2 announcements at the beginning, and then I'm going to get to the lesson and do the other announcement at the end. So stick around for that. Let's go to this here. KetoCon is coming up. I am working on my speech for that, and I am talking to you about cholesterol, so trying not to overwhelm the audience, but also not lose the audience. I am looking to be there on August 21st, and I'm really, April 21st, and I think for 3 weeks now, poor Robin, the lady who runs this, and I have been trying to connect for a live. We think it's not going to happen this week. I leave town tomorrow, and we'll have to try again next week. But I really do look forward to meeting several of you there. I don't have a booth this year, but I will be present and answering questions and just participating in what I think is a really good community building, and that's KetoCon. So see you in Austin for those of you coming. We're going to save the other announcement for the end. But if you want a sneak peek, you go to this page and scroll all the way down. I'm super excited to share that with those of you that did that. All right, let's get to our lesson tonight, because I do want to cover that this topic really sparked interest. We had lots of folks writing in, asking questions, and as I looked at the improvements of how much I learned by trying to find all the answers to your questions, I thought, okay, I shouldn't try to do this with just the questions in the comments. I should try to just repeat what I was learning about, and didn't take a lot of time to get when I got deep into the bowels of learning this, or being able to explain it in a better way. I do think that there is a higher message that I want to have an answer to, and that is Ozempic has quite the craze across our country, across the folks who are trying to lose weight. That I've had several of my friends say, will you write me that prescription? And I'm like, well, you don't have diabetes, first of all, and they don't need to lose much weight. But let's go through why they're asking for it, what the drug does, and then what some of my thoughts are, and why those numbers at the beginning of the show are really important for you to say, what am I trying to get at? What's the point of having a weight loss in the way that this drug helps our weight loss. Please put your questions into the chat. There's already a couple of them that are really good relative to Ozempic. Some of them that I saw you ask last time and I have not answered. Hopefully some of that will be answered here in this slide deck, but we'll get closer to seeing if I do that as we go forward. All right, so let's go through just the basics of what does this do. This is a drug that's been around actually a while. It comes from the venom of a lizard, and we've used it for type 2 diabetics in trying to improve their blood sugars. And indeed, it does improve their blood sugars. But when you look closer at how the drug works, you're going to see why everybody's so excited about it. So let me go over here and all right. So this is our GLP-1. GLP-1 is the name of the group of these types. They're actually more than Ozempic. There's a couple competitors on the market. Maybe that will bring the price down for some of the folks. But the GLP-1 inhibitor, or excuse me, GLP-1 agonist, so acts like the GLP-1, is what this chemical is doing to our systems. It acts like the incretin endocrine system that is in our system. And I'm going to go through one organ at a time what this is doing to those folks that are taking it. So it is very much associated with weight loss, and you're going to see a little bit about why the weight loss happens as I go through this. You're also going to know why they have marketed this in a way that that not only helps diabetics, but now is on the market for weight loss even if you're not diabetic. You're also going to be able to see why the side effects happen. So let's go through that. So let's start with the brain. Okay, we'll start with all of them. We'll just focus here on the neural protection. When you look at what is happening deep inside the brain, there seems to be something about the fat concentration in the brain that appears to have increased density of the insulation around the neuron, so it has some neural protection. But the most powerful thing it does inside the brain is it decreases your appetite. This is beyond some of the other mechanisms it's using, like it decreases the gastric emptying. That decrease of gastric emptying is a physical symptom, but it is connected to that decreased appetite in the brain. So between the two of these, this is some of the biggest mechanisms for why they're not so hungry, why they're actually eating less when they take this. This next organ over here is your pancreas. This is where most of the impact for the GLP-1 is making a difference, and that is inside the pancreas. It does increase the insulin secretion. We're going to come back to that in a bit. It decreases the glucagon secretion. So glucagon comes out of the pancreas and says, hey, liver, we need some sugar. So it decreases that. It increases the insulin biosynthesis, meaning it increases the production of insulin. It does that by proliferating or advancing the cells that make insulin, called beta cells. It also does that by slowing down or halting the natural death cycle for those cells that make insulin. So beta cells proliferate, or they make friends, and they have decreased apoptosis, so decreased cell death of the cells that make insulin. This affects all of your insulin sensitivity. Again, insulin resistant is what most of the folks that watch this channel have. They've had too many days of stimulating insulin, too much insulin around, kind of been brewing their cells in insulin for too long, and that's caused them to be insulin resistant. The insulin sensitivity happens when we reverse that. It's what we were born with. We were born insulin sensitive unless you were really heavy as a baby. Those 10-pound babies might have had some insulin resistance when they were born, but for the most part, you're born insulin sensitive, and the acquisition of chronically stimulating insulin makes you insulin resistant. The use of Ozempic and other GLP-1 agonists increase the glucose uptake and storage inside your muscle. So when it stops producing the glucose over here, that glycogen, that glucagon actually goes over to the liver and says, "Hey, can you give me some of that stored sugar?" As that stored sugar comes out of the liver, the blood sugar rises. This drug decreases that process, and at the same time, it increases how blood sugars are being stored inside your muscle cells, which is normal. I do want you to notice that it does not cause the production of, it does not have much activity inside the fat cells. So there are a couple other cousins to this drug that are very active inside your fat cells, but this is not. All right, so continuing around our little circle, you've got a decreased glucose production over here in the liver. That has a lot to do with that glycogen over in the other areas. And then the last two, it has found to be cardioprotective and maybe increasing the cardiac function. All right, so that's a lot of the science behind what's going on inside your the chemistry of your body. What I like to point out are the side effects for this start with nausea. The nausea has a lot to do with that decreased gastric emptying. There is some increased diarrhea and constipation, which also has a bit to do with the decreased gastric emptying for the constipation side of things. Those that got the diarrhea, they think it was a change in some of that endocrine processes that Ozempic manipulates. Other things like it does have some slight increase in the liver enzymes and your amylase. So amylase and lipase come out of your pancreas, and those tend to rise a little bit in the folks that are using it because there is a lot of activity that this drug does within the pancreas. So the real question here is, would I prescribe this to a patient? And one of the key things that I want to go back to this, hold on. One of the key things I like to point out is that Ozempic does cause weight loss, but in the history of losing weight, not all weight loss is the same. Not even in an obese patient, not all weight loss is the same. That when we are looking at body composition for weight loss, it has been very easy over especially the last decade, using a DEXA scan to see what part of the body was losing weight. Was that a fat loss, or was that a muscle mass loss? I have notes written over on this paper that I want to get to. That when I look at the key things for when I'm asking patients to check on their health, look at how well their health is doing, I look at the amount of testimonials out there for people that have said, "I'm taking this Ozempic, I really have lost weight," and then they're using a metric that I think is inferior, especially if somebody's been struggling with weight gain on and off, or obesity for some time. And the one metric they're using is simply the scale. That if the scale goes down, then this must be good. And unfortunately, if you've been around my channel a while, losing weight has some to do with what the scale says, but it has a lot to do with the psychology of why you gained weight. And even setting the psychology aside, if they're losing weight and it's the muscle mass that they're losing in excess from what would be predicted for a normal weight loss, when anybody loses weight, you're going to lose some muscle. You're going to see some of that muscle mass change, but it should be a predominance of fat mass loss during a healthy weight loss as opposed to muscle mass loss. For starters, the people who are losing weight in my practice they're not coming to me at 20 years old or 25 years old saying, hey, I need to lose 10 pounds. They're 50, 60, 70, 80 years old saying, hey, I need to lose this fat. They are not asking me to lose muscle. Nobody that wants me to lose muscle. I see a couple of you put out there, yes, the Ozempic face is part of what changes here, and I'm about to show you why it changes, and then what we'll circle back to answering that question here in just a second. So let's go over to here. All right, so this table is looking at the endpoints for what the DEXA subpopulation was in the treatment for this Ozempic or semaglutide. I always want to put another syllable in there. They were doing the once a week injections, and when they looked at, not everybody got a DEXA scan. This is the subpopulation in that study that did get DEXA scans. Again, only 55 were on, or excuse me, that's 95 were on the drug. We had another 45 that were not on the drug, so about 140 people had the DEXA scan within this study. As you look at what they found, the kilograms of total fat lost were about 8. The kilograms of visceral fat, again, the most important fat to lose, was less than 1 kilogram. And the total lean body mass kilograms lost was 5. So when you look at this at percentages, I wrote this down earlier. I'm going to get my notes out so I don't do it wrong. This is about 40% of their weight loss was in body, lean body mass was lost. About 60% was lost in fat mass. When you look at a healthy weight loss, we like this number to be less than 25. Meaning we know that if there is a propensity for people to use the resources in their muscle cells as they lose weight, it causes the sarcopenia, or the chronic muscle loss in a body that is very difficult to restore. So when I look at some of the dangers that I think not only patients have when they're losing weight on Ozempic, but more importantly, what happens afterwards. So patients come in and they are desperate. They have had weight loss, or they've had obesity problems forever. That overweight syndrome, being overweight, increases their risks of heart disease, decreases their mobility, decreases their quality of life, their mental health. Set aside the cardiac issues and their longevity. What is their health as they age? When they reach for something that suppresses appetite, yes, we get a weight loss. But unfortunately, they are sacrificing a grand amount of one of the most coveted resources that predict quality of life as they age. That when I first introduced this, what was all over the news that week was something had happened on one of the doctor blogs where Ozempic face was something several physicians were talking about, saying, I can recognize when they walk in that they're not losing weight in a way that is normal. And it's a great experiment, if you would, that the human brain will recognize a pattern. As a physician, you'll watch as a pattern over time. You'll see something and you'll say, that doesn't look right. And as they're losing weight, they have a specific look to their face where the muscle mass is decreasing in their face. And then they'll go into the dermatologist to say, can you plump me up? Can you fix that? And what I contend is the danger is you get the muscle mass to go away, you get the weight to go away, the muscle mass comes with it. And what happens when they stop this drug is that they did not fix the underlying problem. They increased the production of insulin over time. Now we have an even more insulin-resistant problem, even though the number of cells, the mass is less. And the return of weight it's massive. It's like a tidal wave coming back into their life. So I had my team ask me, well, would you ever prescribe that? And I did not reflexively say no. I mean, it's a difficult position to be in when you look at how many things are are held back away from a patient that's suffering from obesity. And knowing that I can manipulate their chemistry with this drug. The injection is about $1,000 a month. They have to do this once a week. You slowly titrate up the medication over time, and it really does slow down that emptying of the stomach. The volume of food that they eat is much less. The suppression, the joy they're getting from food is much less. But other things are getting better. There is that cardioprotective area. There is a little bit of neuroprotectiveness. We know that it's not just the gastric emptying, because we've had lots of drugs that have done that before, but none that have been this popular in the marketplace for people who just need to lose 10 or 15 pounds. And what I fear is not being communicated is that when this is being delivered in somebody who is not who's losing the last 10 pounds, trying to get those last few pounds off, that I don't think they would ever sign up for, I want to lose just as much muscle as I'm going to lose fat. In those last 10 pounds, it is almost always the autophagy, the recycling of proteins that have been hanging out in the spider webs of the body, the place that nobody likes to look and nobody likes to pay attention to, but it's been there a while. And to get the body to reabsorb that, why you need to ignite autophagy. And the number one thing of sparking somebody's autophagy is you must lower the insulin. When you lower the insulin, let me show you a couple things that happen. Maybe. Here we go. When you lower the insulin, you can measure this. Okay, so this is what is bringing me back to my numbers here. So a lowered insulin shows that the glucose will go down and ketones will go up. So as you look at, ketones of 2.8 and a glucose of 54, and then the ketones of 3, glucose of 55. Those are examples where autophagy is happening. When we look at a glucose of 70, ketones of 2.5, that was while I was supposed to be sleeping, and had I, it's been a while since I had that high of a ketone in my sleep, so I did wake up. But had I slept through that, my body would have been recycling protein while I slept, and it would not be using the protein that is in my muscle. That muscle mass, as you lose it when you age, becomes incredibly difficult to restore. And when you sacrifice the resource found in the muscle mass of a young person, maybe 40 years old, saying, I just need those last 10 pounds off. And it did not remove the spiderweb fat, that little niche of fat, around their waistline that probably went on first, has been there the longest, and it will require a chemistry shift in order to take those resources, recycle them back into the body, and use them in a way that is healthy. And again, when you look at the mechanism of action that is found in Ozempic, it is that it goes into that pancreas and it stimulates a lot. It takes the beta cells that produce insulin and it makes them live a little longer. It stops them from breaking down, and it actually helps them replicate. So you make more cells that make insulin, which can be helpful if you needed that. But almost every one of the patients that needs to lose weight needs to be lowering their insulin, which is how you spark autophagy as a weight loss, as opposed to the muscle mass that's being lost when people use Ozempic. So the question, before I go to your questions, I'm going to put it out on the line that I will tell you that as a younger physician, I probably would have written this drug. It is so tempting when you're in that moment to help a patient lose weight. And had I not seen the success that I've seen where patients really do become free of me, they do not need to come see me in the clinic. They're healthy. They get to go away. That freedom, it does take some education. I think it takes a persistent group where you aren't just meeting to say, how's the weather? You're actually sharing numbers. And thanks to Keto Mojo and all the work that they've done to help me help you create a support group that really connects through the numbers. The use of that dashboard for you, it's free. That's not, they don't charge you for that. I don't charge you for that. I'm saying go create a support group. And Keto Mojo will show you how to have a dashboard that you can share the numbers with one another. And, I don't prick my finger and check this for you just because it's fun. I do this because it really changes my accountability when I want to snitch and have food that I shouldn't have, or maybe eat a little too much in a setting. I know that it's going to change my numbers. If I'm the only one looking at it, well, it's kind of like, the Charlie Brown saying that doing a good job around here is kind of like peeing your pants in dark slacks. You get a warm feeling, but nobody really notices. So yeah, I might feel a little embarrassed that I didn't do a good job, but nobody noticed if I'm not sharing it. And it's when I'm in community with other people, because I need accountability too. I get tempted too. And that process of sharing those numbers and being in a place where your chemistry isn't going to wake up tomorrow and be better. It takes time to notch that metabolism in the right direction. And when you get stalled, well, heck, ask one of the people who's been in our 21-day course. They know how to break a stall. They know what it takes to stimulate a metabolism. And if you need a refresher course, come on by. We are going to keep doing that class twice a year. It made such a huge difference. In fact, tune in next week where I talk about what did I learn? What are some of the things I learned in that class? I'm going to take a minute here to return to one of the announcements, and then I will go over to your questions. I see several of you typing in some of the good questions, and I've had these questions, so good job. Let me go over here and show, hold tight. Oh, here we go. Yeah, that's what I want. All right, so Dr. Boz, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, I just want to say thank you for the people who have sent in video reviews. These were super brave people that said, I'm going to record myself and upload the video to share that. Now, I couldn't get the sound to play, so I'm not going to torture you or me by pushing play on this, but I highly recommend that you go listen to the folks that have left the reviews. It means so much more when you hear what happened in their lives. A couple other things that I am really thankful to say, and that is we have been out of our raspberry lemonade. It is back. It is fully stocked. Praise God. It took a lot longer than we thought, but it is back in demand. And again, when you leave us a review, we really do appreciate that, whether here or on Amazon. I can't tell you how much that matters. When people want to hear about a product, they do not want to hear from me. They want to hear from people who've put their money out there and tried it. And it just means a lot to of those of you that have taken the time to do that. All right, let's get over to your questions. I'm going to give a little bit of a heads up warning that I have a beautiful 16-year-old who is about to start his high jump again tonight. So I will take questions for about 15 minutes, and then I'm going to duck out a little bit early. So we're going to start with a question from Herbert. He says, how does one revert Ozempic face? Not necessarily caused by Ozempic, but by too fast of weight loss. Do I need to spark autophagy? Well, Herbert, I did see your question right before I started my live and thought, oh, that's the perfect beginning question. So I hope that you got the answer to that a little bit by saying, when people's muscle is gone, rebuilding the muscle it's very difficult. If you've ever watched somebody lose weight from their severe life illness like chemotherapy, or I've had a couple patients with ALS that really had muscle wasting, a couple people with MS, those muscles just wasted. Now in several of the patients with MS, it was a reverting, relapsing type of multiple sclerosis, and when they were not relapsed, the muscle would try to repair. But you could almost draw a line around the muscles that had lost part of their mass. To restore it, you first must control your blood sugar. So if there's one place to start, it would be checking what is your average blood sugar, what is your hemoglobin A1C. If your doctor won't do that, you can order that from us. It's a home kit. You got to prick your finger and send it in, but by golly, for $40, you don't have to fight the the system. Maybe it's $45 or something, but it really does give you a baseline. I'd want you getting that blood sugar stable before you start doing the next couple of steps. When people have had muscle wasting, that persistent presence of ketones is very important. To do workout for the facial muscles, I guess I'd tell you to smile, but that's not very easy to do. For the muscle mass that's in their body, the one that predicts longevity, you do need to have a higher amount of protein when you're doing that. You also need to stimulate the muscle, which means you need to tear it and then repair it, and tear it and repair it. I know that sounds crude, but that's how muscles are returned in mass, is that they are able to proliferate by injury repair cycles. That's called working out. When you're a little sore after jumping rope, it means, oh, those muscles in your leg tore a little bit, and now they're repairing, and that's how you restore the muscle mass. The higher protein on a ketogenic diet is when you are trying to do that. Now, I warn people, do not hop to the high protein part before you get the fat off. So when people have lost the weight and they're trying to build the muscle mass, that's really where the prevention of losing that weight is also a place where the fat and protein are a different equation. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they hop over into a high protein state before they've lost the fat mass. And they're too insulin resistant to be able to continue the progression of weight loss, so they stall. Doc, I'm stalled on the ketogenic diet. And when you look at it, they're eating a lot of protein, and the fat amount, they're not in ketosis. I mean, check your numbers. If you're not in ketosis, you're not on the ketogenic diet. If you're looking for that stability of muscle breakdown and the propensity to use those old decrepit proteins that are laying around, that's what you use in autophagy. If you want the menu to be those old decrepit proteins that are being recycled, why you should not be in a state of you should not have that higher fat mass that's still looking to be emptied. Meaning, it's not that you don't get autophagy as you lose weight, but staying in a persistent state of ketosis while you lose weight. Many people push the protein. It just sounds healthier, like, oh, I'm on a protein diet, I'm on a high protein diet. But if you're insulin resistant, you're not going to have the weight loss when you have excess amounts of protein taken in before your insulin resistance is reversed. And I contend it's a good half dozen to a dozen years of people really persisting in a state of ketosis to get the weight off, and then to stay in a state where their body has repaired and now is building that muscle back. All right. So I might be the same. Herbert wrote another good question right after that, which is, what's the correct Ozempic get-out protocol? Well, that's a good question too. So again, what Ozempic is doing is it's stimulating that production of insulin. So when they stop it, you're going to see blood sugars rise. You'll see that the release of blood sugar back into the system is no longer suppressed. And if you want to stimulate somebody's hunger, get that blood sugar fluctuating up and down. So you'll see a craving for food happen again when they go off of it. I think the dangerous part of that is when I'm guiding somebody off of a drug that has been pushing their insulin too high, whether it's a type 2 diabetic that's coming off of insulin, whether it's a type 1 diabetic who's trying to reduce the amount of insulin they need, or somebody who's been on a GLP-1 where they've been pushing the insulin production and they've had this massive suppression of appetite. What we now need to do is awaken those hormones that do shut off your hunger. But we need to do it in a way that's sustainable and healthy. And those hormones come from fat. So we put them on a ketogenic diet. We put them on a very high fat, low carb, moderate protein. But it's pretty hearty amounts of fat. And I don't play with it at the beginning. I do it just like I would do a type 2 diabetic coming onto the ketogenic diet, which is step 1 of the keto continuum is the phase where we restore some of these fat-based hormones. And I see patients come in all the time and they hop way over to, I want to do intermittent fasting, or I want to do time-restricted eating. And they do that without this the bed, the foundation of fat-based hormones, and they feel terrible. They crave. They're hungry. They would never be able to fast for 2 days and feel good at the end of 2.5 days of fasting. And I tell you that step one is, you see that that book right there, Keto Continuum, that workbook. That's what I would be getting, because I start with the psychology. If they don't have a good why about what you're trying to do, what are you doing this for, then, oh, good Lord, the cravings win. If they get so stinking hungry, the cravings just sweep through their life. And they're not on my plan for more than 3 weeks. Calling back saying, hey, I want that drug again because I am so hungry. And I'm like, yeah, we know that's what happens. So I start them on a high-fat diet. I get them in that phase until they get to Keto Continuum number 3, which is they accidentally miss a meal. Their satiety is restored, where they're like, oh, I was so busy today, I missed a meal. And it's the best scene, because it tells me, oh, we've got a bed of these hormones that I want to use. I want to pull these levers and use these hormones in their body. Instead of injecting it in for $1,000, a month, I want your body to produce them. And if you treat it right, it can. Good questions, Herbert. Let's go on to the next one. So you previously mentioned it's best to lose some weight and then plateau. What changes do you recommend to achieve in a plateau? All right, so this is another great feed-in to what I think patients really focus on. When I say plateau, I am usually not talking about a number plateau. The plateau that most patients talk about is a plateau of weight loss. So I'm going to assume that that's what you mean. What you'll notice is that during a plateau, I'm going to see if I can be really sneaky here. During a plateau, this isn't what you're looking at. They're not looking at the metrics inside the body. As you progress along the keto continuum, you will be able to watch, using your morning fasting glucose, morning fasting ketones, how well your metabolism is doing. And although it may plateau for a few days, it doesn't take long for the patient to say, oh, not much is going to happen here in my body if I have a blood sugar of 95 in the morning and a ketone of 0.2. That is a chemical plateau. I actually am really glad this question came up, because it isn't just that they plateau. The key that's happening during that plateau is that their weight hasn't changed. But if you're paying attention to a season of your life, saying, okay, I teach people in the keto continuum, here's step 1, and then you do well, and now when you're ready, we'll go to step 2. But if you stay out here, you probably won't go backwards as far as weight loss or weight gain goes, but you're not going to progress and lose more weight. In order to continue to lose weight, I need to progress your metabolism to the next level and then stay steady. When they're at that next skill level, the one that they're trying to learn to hold the weight loss, I need them to master the psychology. The reason people gain weight on Ozempic is they didn't address any of the issues that were causing them to gain weight, which is they love food for boredom. They eat food for boredom. They eat food for comfort. We all do that. That's normal. But they have learned that their brain really finds such joy in food that they haven't developed the other places that they should have been recruiting joy from in their life. And as a result, the skill set is missing. So I'm trying to figure out how to say this word. Let's go back to questions. I'm trying to figure out how to say this name. For Risas? I don't know. Okay, so I'm sure if I wasn't overly staring at it, I'd be able to say that. So whoever you are, when I look at what I would ask people to do before they push to the next level of the keto continuum, I would be looking around to say, do you feel good in this season? Each time we advance the skills of either decreasing the hours in an eating window, moving it closer to sunrise, letting go of one of the comforts of adding cream to their coffee, all of the places which on the first, chapter of keto were totally fine. They allowed you to lose weight. They are part of the rules. But as we advance you to a place that is a higher push of your metabolism, I have them assess whether they're comfortable or not. So when I look at what things I recommend, it's really based on the psychology. And when I talk about the plateau of people losing weight, I'm talking about the scale. If you're watching the metabolism on the backside, you're cheating. That's what I do. I would cheat, looking what are my numbers. And when your metabolism levels out, when you can't get your Dr. Boz ratio below 100, well, you're not going to lose weight. You're chemically you're chemically not able to reverse it without reverse the fat loss until you get the blood sugar to go down, get the ketones to go up, which means you lowered your insulin a little further. Insulin resistance, what's happening with these plateaus is your insulin is becoming more adapted to this mass of your body. And it takes time to do that. But you'll know not that you don't need to push very hard if your blood sugar is still in the 80s and your ketones are still 0.8. You're getting into the hundreds of weight loss. So timing and chemistry really need to match up for those weight loss to the plateau to be reversed. Oh, look at all these good questions. Okay, JY writes in and says, does Ozempic change the gut microbiome to improve sugar? Well, so the key thing about gut microbiomes is when people when they change the way they eat, period, it changes the microbiome. When you look at people who do fasting, not only does the microbiome change, their ability to absorb resources the next time they eat becomes improved. That when you look at some of the micronutrients or microminerals that get recycled, they happen when that advanced chemistry, ketosis is one of those advanced chemistries, is being flexed. And that is in part of that microbiome milieu, the different types of bacteria, yeast that are in the gut and growing, and they have messages throughout our body that are reflected. Where I think medicine has really failed is for us to say, oh, you should do this to make your microbiome better. We've had people say, let's do a stool transplant, take somebody's healthy microbiome and put it in yours. And then we have people saying, oh, you need high fiber, and people saying, oh, you need no fiber. And then you have, you look at the reason there's a million different ways to tell people how to manipulate their microbiome is because the human body will adjust to what you're eating. So if I look at what Ozempic really does to microbiome, the volume of food goes down and your body does what it's going to do, which is change the microbiome. I hope that answered that question. All right, Lisa writes in and says, is there going to be a problem with fatty liver with this drug? What's interesting is the liver is where, so let me just show you this slide again just to pull that back up. Let's go back over here. All right, so when you look at what was happening inside that liver, the glucose production went down. Part of it was that the glucagon secretion over there in the pancreas was also less. Glucagon says release blood sugar, release blood sugar. Where the blood sugar went is it now gets tucked into a muscle cell, so it's stored in the muscle cells, and you don't have more glucose production. It is really emptying that. As time goes on, we'd like to think that it reverses the fatty liver. Fatty liver does respond to weight loss. It is part of the resources being recycled. I think part of the key thing that I am, keen on is that fat mass there was not very active. Yes, it released fat. They lost fat weight. 60% of their weight loss was from fat, but 40% was from their muscle mass. during that time, their liver enzymes all looked good. They actually got a little better. So I don't think that it's causing a fatty liver. I don't think it's the best way to reverse a fatty liver, but yeah. All right, let's go back to here. BB writes in, I ended up with AFib after a 72-hour fast. I had not been taking electrolytes, but I had been eating real salt magnesium tabs as well as floats. Add lights during the fast. So when I see that atrial fib show up during a 72-hour fast, I really do think that it was too big of a stress for that patient at that season. Just like when people end up in a sauna and they have quite the reaction to the sauna, I say start with 4 minutes. Quit pushing so hard. So if your first 72-hour fast was after one 36-hour fast, that's like saying, yep, I ran a mile and then I ran a marathon. So what I would ask your body to do is that heart needs to get in better shape. When you flip into atrial fib, it really is a sign that you put a lot of stress on the heart and that your heart was not ready for that. I know your mind was and your soul was and maybe the mitochondria in your liver was. But if your heart has had a few too many trips around the sun at the same time where that blood pressure has been high, or it's been pushing circulation through too many pounds, too much body's mass, then I would tell you the next time around, yes, the water stability is important. Those electrolytes would have needed to be important. But I would tell you that that's not the best way to push your metabolism. I would push you to a sauna for 4 minutes. I would decrease your eating window to, maybe it's at 6 hours and you go to 5 hours, or slide those 6 hours towards sunrise instead of later at night. 72-hour fasts, they're a tax on the body. And when you're healthy, that's great. When you're not so healthy, yeah. So, all right, 2 more questions, and I'm going to check my blood pressure or blood sugar and ketones again, and then I get to get ready to get on a plane tomorrow. I'm going to go to a track meet, and then I go to a plane tomorrow. Questions here. Okay, so Linda writes in, Ozempic face. How long after starting the drug before the face changes? Months, years? It really depends on how high the dose was, and then how insulin resistant was the patient when they started. Again, Ozempic face happens because the muscle resources were easy for the body to grab. So when you have the onset is, well, how quickly did it grab the resources in your muscles? And if they were pretty overweight and they were on the drug for 6 weeks, it probably didn't use much muscle mass. It's that persistent time where, 6 months in, they took 60% of the fat mass and 40% of the muscle mass when they saw what that weight loss was over those. The study that I was showing you, I think, was 62 weeks, so a little over a year, and it was a pretty significant shift in the muscle loss. All right, so Tiffany writes in and says, should I drink exogenous ketones while fasting? If not, why? I drank ketones from Keto OS, and my ketone production has gone down every day since, eating the same diet as before drinking them. All right, so the purpose of ketones. Why do I do ketones on this show? Not because my ketones are 3 at the beginning. I do ketones on the show to show you what should happen in a healthy, where did I put that? What should happen in a, is that the ketones should go up during a time where you drink the ketones and you measure them before and after. What drinking ketones during a fast is better than adding fat during a fast. But what I like to tell patients is that during a fast, you want to try to be as clean as possible. If you're reaching for your first 48-hour fast and you're struggling at about 36 hours, adding ketones, the ketones I like to add are the ones that have no sweeteners during a fast. So that would be ketones in a capsule or Pucker Up. Where'd that little Pucker Up go? So Pucker Up is liquid ketones. They are really sour. There is no sweetener in there. There is no salt in there. There's nothing in there but liquid beta-hydroxybutyric acid. So it's like a really sour lemon juice. That's why the name is Pucker Up. Now, that isn't for everybody. It's very potent. It is expensive. But you can also do the same thing with putting ketones in a capsule. So taking beta-hydroxybutyric salts and putting them in a capsule, that's something I would have patients do during a fast. What I tell them not to do is to have the sugar supplements. Those sweeteners in somebody who's insulin resistant, I just think if you're going to fail to food. If you're trying to acquire this habit, having ketones is better than having MCT. MCT increases your ketones, but it stops you from recruiting the fat from your body, which is what you're trying to do. When you put ketones in circulation, well, they're calories. You're going to have a little better energy, but it does not stop your body from recruiting the fat that your system is trying to say, hey, I'm trying to open up this new floodgate of resources. And I can't do that. When you put in fat, then you stop the fat loss. And if you're doing intermittent fasting to try and reverse that metabolic problem, you really do need to give the body the stress. And that means don't have the food go in when you're trying to ask your body just to increase the stress. All right, so let's see what these did in the last hour. Again, this is a live show. Glucose of 52, ketones of 4.1. Yeah, so wow, that's pretty good numbers. Now, if I would synchronize this to my Keto Mojo, I would definitely you'd be able to see that on my Dr. Boz ratio. But if somebody else would help me on doing that calculation and putting it in the comments, I would love that. So I'm going to go off and be a good mom, watch my son fly into something called pole vault. Check me out on Instagram if you want to follow that. I do record him, much to his chagrin. There are some other really good questions here, so we might save those actually for next week because they really should be answered. And I just want, for anybody watching this on replay, we are going to put keto chemistry as our video at the end of this tonight. YouTube loves it when you click on that. We get points for being a good channel by offering content that we think you would like. So I think it would really dovetail into what I was trying to teach tonight about Ozempic when it comes to how do you learn more about that keto chemistry. Again, during the live show, we do not have any commercials, but we do put them on the replay. So try to tune in with us Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will